Okay, so I wanted to talk about the whole direwolf situation and really get into as much specifics about it as I can while still keeping a relatively surface level video. Now, I know everybody and their mother has already talked about this to death, but I just wanted to get my 2 cents in. Okay, so first, the direwolves that were created by Colossal Biosciences aren't real direwolves. Now, like, duh, obviously they're not real direwolves, they were extinct for 10,000 years, but to know what I mean exactly, it's best to get into the actual genetics of it all. These direwolves were created from genetically engineered gray wolf embryos that were then birthed from gray wolf surrogate mothers. Now, gray wolves are not descended from direwolves in any way. In fact, they're more like cousins that actually existed at the same time, with competition from gray wolves actually being one of the main reasons for the direwolf's extinction. Now, they shared their last common ancestor about 5.3 million years ago, which actually means direwolves aren't wolves at all, and makes them more closely related to the African jackal than the great wolf. Now, direwolves have no direct descendants, so when the last direwolf died, their entire evolutionary lineage died with it. So then, why not use an African jackal's embryo over a gray wolf's embryo if they're more genetically related? Well, the answer is a bit simpler than you might think. Basically, gray wolves just look more like direwolves than African jackals do. At least they look more like how a person would think a direwolf looks like than an African jackal. They just fit the bill better. So, when Colossal decoded the direwolf genome, they found that the sample that they took shared about 99.5% of the same DNA with gray wolves. Now, it is still possible that there are still many more aspects of the direwolf DNA that we just don't have. But from the sample that we took, they're pretty darn similar. So basically, it's just easier to make a gray wolf look like a direwolf than to make anything else look like one. So really, the whole purpose of the direwolf de-extinction project wasn't to bring back real living direwolves, but rather it was to genetically engineer a creature that looks how a person would think a direwolf looks like. Basically, it's a big publicity stunt that was used to market Colossal's technology and test its viability. Now, it is worth noting that these genetically engineered gray wolves do share a significant portion of their DNA with direwolves, but technically speaking, they're not direwolves. Although, this does raise a lot of very interesting philosophical and certainly ethical questions to consider that could determine the very future of this technology. I mean, the possibilities are really endless. You could use it for animal conservation